Karen once again for hosting, and this time on our agenda we'll invite Christian Goodwin, Louisa County Administrator, for some remarks.
Thanks, sir. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I scribbled down a few words that I wanted to say today, but before I start, I'd like to say that I'm honored to be here. And I think people often say that they're honored when they're invited to speak somewhere, but getting to the point where we could stand on this stage and have this conversation here in Louisa County has been a personal and a professional goal for myself, our Board of Supervisors, many of the folks on the stage for many years. So when I say I'm honored to be here, I really mean it. When I sit down and listen to folks talk, I always want to know what they want to say or what they plan to say. So I wrote down really 4 major words: appreciation, the county's role, the schedule, and the process. And they told me I had between 2 and 10 minutes up here. It may not be 2, but I don't think it'll quite be 10 either, so you don't have to sit through too much. But I am really thankful to a number of folks and entities here, and first, and certainly not least, the folks on the stage here. Gary Wood and CVAC and Firefly have just played a tremendous role in doing this, and it takes courage and fortitude to do something that folks have tried unsuccessfully in the past. And Gary, under your leadership, Firefly is doing something that good folks have made an effort at in the past, so I'm grateful to you, and that doesn't diminish our gratitude to our other partners on stage, REC and Dominion. Louisa, like many counties, is served by several electric utilities, and we knew before this process even got underway that electric utilities were the best way to get broadband to every household. And so without the cooperation and collaboration with Dominion and REC, this process and this project would never be underway. So very, very grateful to our partners. Also super grateful to our Board of Supervisors. Gary and I were talking, Gary and I talk routinely, probably more than he wants. But we were talking on Friday just about this event this morning, and he used a word in describing what the county's role was that I'm going to plagiarize today, and that word is accelerant. You know, I kind of think of the county as a communicator and really a convener, and really I don't think about necessarily speeding the process up, but it was the Board of Supervisors' commitment to broadband to every end user in the county in the form of $15 million that really got folks to the point that we're at today. Everybody on this stage has been willing to have this conversation for a long time. That commitment of that funding here in Louisa County made them able to be on stage and have that conversation. So very grateful to the Board of Supervisors. Don't want to miss an opportunity to express our gratitude to the Broadband Authority. And you said, well, why are we grateful for the Broadband Authority? You know, today's solution may look a little bit different than their initial solution when they proposed it in 2014 and 15, but if you were paying attention and tuned into that process back then, and I'm sure many, if not all of you were, you know that the Broadband Authority was taking on a task when it was a little less widely accepted than it is today. And they knew that it was important not to let perfect be the enemy of good. And having an effort that maybe couldn't serve everybody right out of the gate, but made progress initially, is something that they felt that they needed to do, and it was an important first step in getting us to where we are today, so I'm grateful to them as well. You know, we talk about schedule a lot, and you know, we had a press conference back in March, and one of us, it may have been me, said first that the process was going to take until 2025, and I heard a quiet but collective groan in the audience that it was going to be a 5-year project, right? And we said, well, listen, there's going to be some unexciting work that has to take place in 2021. There's going to be some engineering and some planning and some make-ready work and grant applications and all these things that maybe aren't going to be so exciting from I got a new gigabit internet connection in my home. But really critically important for the rest of this process to take place. And when we undertake big projects on our team, we talk a lot about under-promising and over-delivering, and I'm really happy that is happening in this case as well. There's some folks in the south and the southern and western parts of the county and really moving this way to the north and the east that are very pleased that they have end user connections. And I'm even happier that it's not just happening on Firefly's network, it's happening on REC's network as well. So we're getting progress in advance of the schedule, and that's really important. And just the process itself, you know, we talked about that collective groan, and why does it take so long? If you've taken on a big capital project, you know that it does take a lot of time and resources and planning, and putting miles and miles and miles of fiber in across an entire county is a very involved and complex effort. And it's involved and complex in and of itself, and it's been exacerbated by the appearance of a lot of federal funding over the past 24 months. So the CARES Act funding was put in place, and it was kind of a smaller amount of funding that localities and the state had to use, and now we've got the Rescue Act funding, and even in Louisa County, that's over $7 million. So every locality across the nation is dealing with that influx of additional funding, which sounds great, and it is. But it means when you get that kind of money, almost every locality in the nation, and I talk to my colleagues across the state and some across the nation on a routine basis, so every locality across the nation is looking at infrastructure projects as a way to spend all or part of this funding. How does that relate to the Louisa County Fiber Project? Well, we're all using the same pool of resources. Engineering firms, construction materials like fiber, the people who locate fiber utilities, the people or underground public utilities, the people who would bury fiber in the ground or hanging on a pole. So that's really creating kind of a supply chain bottleneck that's also driving prices up. So that makes an already complex process even more challenging, but we're going to get through it together. I'm really happy to be here today. This is great to be a part of here in Louisa County. I'm playing a teeny tiny role in it, but we've got great folks here today. And I'm glad you're here and ready to answer questions. I'm glad to help in any way I can. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Christian. I do appreciate what the county has offered as an accelerant. I can tell you as an employee and resident in the county, I just received my Firefly connection about 2 weeks ago. I'm very pleased with that out in the Trevilians area. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started with the agenda, and we're going to introduce our facilitator today, Kelly Avellino from NBC 12. She's an anchor and reporter, lived in Richmond for over 6 years, and is proud to call the River City her home. Kelly covers the Richmond City beat and is honored to help share the voices and stories of many incredible people who make up RVA. And I know if you don't see her on the station, she's out in outdoor activities. She's very active in her life. And at this time, Kelly, we appreciate you spending time today with us in Louisa County and being our facilitator. So, Kelly, take it away. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you everyone for being here. First, let us meet our distinguished guests. We have Gary Wood, President and CEO of Firefly Fiber Broadband. We also have Peter Mahoro, Chief Strategy, Innovation, and Technology Officer for Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. And we also have David Welker, Director of Rural Broadband Services for Dominion Energy. Thank you, gentlemen. Now we're going to hear a little bit about this project from you all, so I'll toss the baton and fill us in on the most up-to-date developments.
Good morning, everyone. You guys hear me okay?
David Walker, Dominion Energy. First, I want to just thank not only for the folks here offering us to be here today. Thank you for the tour. You got me teed up to buy a couple photos, so thank you. But more importantly, I want to thank Ed Diggs. For those of you who don't know Ed, he's been a key player in this for Dominion Energy. I'm up here on the stage today, but he's been part of the negotiations, handling this, getting us to this point along with Gary and others. So thank you, Ed. I'm going to just touch on a few things today, and then we're going to begin with some Q&A. I'll hand it over to Peter. First, there was a video, we don't have that, but I want to just reference a few data points. If you look at this slide, and I know it's a little bit hard to see, the things on this slide, telework, education, telehealth, over the last 16 to 18 months, a light has been shined on the critical need of high-speed internet. Obviously, in the past, it was probably nice to have. That's no longer the case. It's essential. And if you look at telework, obviously it's clear working remote, teleworking is key, but it's also those who might not be working. A recent survey said 80% of individuals looking for jobs are leveraging high-speed internet and doing that in a remote capacity. So looking for jobs, applying for jobs. So without high-speed internet, it's critical. You can talk about education. I mean, for those of you who are parents, obviously it's been very key over the last 16 to 18 months. Pre-COVID, they said 7 out of 10 teachers assigned work that required high-speed internet. So I think it's clear that as we enter COVID, I'm sure 10 out of 10 teachers assigned assignments that require high-speed internet. So the need, once again, it's critical that the partnership taking place here today between Rappahannock, Firefly, Dominion Energy takes place to help those initiatives. And then for those of you in the room, the small businesses, this slide's really to indicate as we build out Dominion Energy, and I'll hit it on the next slide, is really here along with Rappahannock to build some middle mile infrastructure. And what that means is we're going to go from point to point, and when we do that, we basically have fiber capacity that will allow Firefly and other ISPs in the state to connect and deliver that service to the house or business. So it's a critical program. I can't emphasize that enough. We're pleased to be part of it, and I'm personally proud to be here today. So this is very small, once again, but if you look on the slide here in the bottom right, it's really to show kind of how this program will take place. So for Dominion Energy, and you'll hear from others, we're going to build infrastructure from substation to substation, and then build some laterals. It will take it about roughly to a mile to the last service. So when we do that, we install our fiber. We're doing that for grid resiliency and reliability. But with that capacity comes an opportunity, a business opportunity, and that's why we're here today. So once again, excited to be part of this. You'll hear a little bit more of how this works, but we're installing fiber with capacity that can be leveraged for this business model, and it's going to be a really good thing. And then the last, Christian noted this, this is a little bit more complex in Louisa because there's more than one entity. So this map reference kind of shows you have Central Virginia, CVEC, Dominion Energy, and Rappahannock all serving individual homes and businesses across the county. So you have that complexity, and then you have Firefly who will step in and provide that last mile service. So we'll answer some questions. Hopefully this map here is just to show, make sure you understand, and Christian noted it once again, this is not an overnight project. It's a heavy lift, but it can be done. We know it can be done successfully. So with that, I'll turn it over to Keith.
Good morning. Okay, good morning. All right, I've had like 3 shots of espresso, so excited to be here this morning and to be with the fine distinguished guests here this morning. I'm Peter Muhoro with Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. I'm actually filling in for CEO John Hewer, who wanted to be here but could not be here, so I assured him the better looking one will be here this morning. So, this project has been exciting. It has been one of my first involvements as soon as I got to REC. Christian, I think I was in the job maybe 3 weeks when we first met, and so we've been heavy in this broadband and fiber services reports under me, and excited to talk a little bit about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the excitement about this project. So just a little bit about REC. I mean, I think you all know the cooperative, but overall 170,000 connections throughout about 22 counties here in Virginia. And what's interesting is we are number 2 out of all electric cooperatives in the U.S. in terms of miles of line. So we do serve a very large territory, and 17,000 miles of line are not easy to maintain. The number 1 is one in Texas, and I worked there, and it was 22,000. And I can tell you it is challenging. And when you have 10 meters to a mile of density, you have some opportunities, but also some challenges. And here in Louisa specifically, as you can see, we've got about 13,000 meters, 1,300 miles of line. So why is that important? That's important because that's really the infrastructure that we put the fiber on. That's the opportunity that already exists, and it makes it very cost effective. We could follow the same path when we look at fiber. So REC's concept, and in fact last year we surveyed all our members and we asked them, what do you want us to do in terms of broadband? And we overwhelmingly heard, do something. That's essentially what we heard. I would say 90% were saying do something, be a facilitator, do it, or do something. And so we really listened to our membership and we said, we are going to do whatever we can to help our membership in terms of broadband. And so when we look at ourselves, we see ourselves as a facilitator. What you can see is nearly half of our territory. It's a little bit, not the easiest map to see, but all the areas in blue, those are areas that we're looking at in terms of regional projects. Here with Firefly, we've got several counties. Louisa specifically, but also we've got a few other ones we're working together, as well as other ones where in Louisa specifically, and our partnership with Firefly, we are building the fiber and just leasing it to them. So we will not be the internet service provider. That will be Firefly. But we'll build it, we'll own it, and just lease it to them to operate as an internet service provider. In other counties, what we're doing is somewhat very similar to Dominion with other providers, where we're leasing dark fiber or even allowing pole attachments for anyone else who wants to roll out fiber. So we're looking at this as a regional way we can facilitate this. Every single day, I think, for example, you see Madison there in yellow, but Madison is actually also part of a project with Firefly. So every single day we're seeing more and more interest in seeing fiber throughout our territory. So, as I said, in Louisa, what we're doing is building and owning the fiber and leasing it to them. So we've made some progress. We already began doing some work in June. We began doing the make-ready engineering work, and Gary will talk a little bit more about this, but in the areas, portions of Shannon Hill, that's already in progress, and looking at Mount Hope as the next place that we move forward. So Christian kind of mentioned a little bit about, moving fast and trying to get this done, but there are some challenges, the resources. If anyone has read anything about supply chain, it is real, it's a problem, and so it could impact the project, but we're trying to work as hard as we can to do this. And lastly, I'm just going to talk about what we're doing in terms of REC. Similarly to Dominion, we are building out our fiber utility network, and that is connecting every substation throughout our territory. And the reason for that is there's a lot more on the electric side that communications fiber will allow us to do, bringing more services to all our members. And so that's another option that we're using, and that way we can also lease. We're building the fiber in a way we can lease that excess capacity that we do not necessarily need. And that provides an opportunity for many other counties, not necessarily for what we're doing with Firefly, but many other counties that who will have fiber connected throughout our territory. And so even here in Louisa, some of you may have received some notification that we are building fiber in your area. So we continue to do that even in the Louisa area. So to end the conversation here, really the biggest drivers for us, we understand this is an underserved territory, and we know our members overwhelmingly wanted to do this, but we also see the opportunity on the electric side and what we can do with newer technologies and things like that, and what fiber can help us with. And also we see the opportunity for economic development. I think David did a great job teeing it up, the opportunity that exists today. I look at myself, I have 3 or 4 devices that are connected, right, at any given time, and that's just the nature of what today looks like. And so we're here to facilitate, we're here to help, and if any of you want someone to reach out and talk fiber, REC, Mark Ponton, who's here in the audience, he's my fiber liaison and the guy who pretty much knows all things fiber, so you can feel free to reach out to him at any time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gary.
Thank you, Peter, and thanks to the Chamber for putting this event on. Although I have to tell you, if I had my preference, I probably would have done this next year when we were connecting a few more people, because early on, one of the toughest parts of these projects is managing the expectations, because everybody needs it immediately. And we know that, and we can't get to everybody immediately. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but appreciate you inviting me out. I apologize for being a few minutes late. I was actually up on time. I was just working on this project and got caught up and didn't realize what time it was. And then got behind school buses, but that's okay. Let me tell you a little bit about Firefly, and then we'll take some questions. Firefly Fiber Broadband is a wholly owned subsidiary of Central Virginia Electric Co-op. In the state of Virginia, electric co-ops are not allowed by law to sell retail internet service. But electric co-ops are allowed under law to own a subsidiary that is in any legal business in Virginia. So we looked at distilleries, that would seem good, but we decided to do Firefly Fiber Broadband instead. No, we decided in 2017, because of the need for internet service, that fiber was the way to solve that. that it provided enough benefit on the electric side that it made sense. And to complete that project, we had to start up Firefly to provide the retail service. So Central Virginia Electric Co-op has been working on a project across our 4,500 miles of line, not quite as large as Rappahannock's territory, and we'll complete that next year. Firefly has been in business then since 2018. We have about 25 employees. All of those folks work out of our 3 offices in Palmyra, Appomattox, and Colleen. The majority of them work out of Palmyra. So we're a local company. When you call for a technical issue or you call to get service connected, you're calling Palmyra. One of our trucks usually rolls out. We use a few contractors, but for the most part, it's our folks showing up in the Firefly trucks and doing the work to get you connected, and we do the maintenance on the lines. So it's a local company. We're approaching 10,000 connections. We'll get there next month. That's pretty quick for a company that started up in 2018. And in January of 2019, we had 5 connections. So we've been moving pretty quickly. We are connecting about 120 to 150 a week, and we'll be continuing that for the next several years. Let me just touch on the Cvc project. And we do have portions of the western part of Louisa that we are in. We've completed 2 substations already. We are working in Henson Store and making connections in there daily. I'm sure we have more scheduled today. And Ferncliff, we've started construction in, but for those of you who have been waiting in Henson Store and waited before in Zion's and those areas, you know that it takes about 6 to 8 months from the time the first truck shows up and starts doing field work until the last truck shows up and comes inside and connects you. And there are a bunch of trucks in between. So we have field investigation, we have field engineering, we have make-ready construction where we move things around on the poles and make room for the fiber. Then we have fiber placement crews. Then we have splicers who splice the fiber together to make connections. Then we have the service drop crews who do extensions to your house, to the outside. Then we call and come and put things inside. So you'll see 5 or 6 different trucks, and it's spread over a period of time. Ferncliff has just started under construction. Henson Store will be wrapping up with those connections in the next month or so for the people who have already signed up for service. And then Doubleday, a little bit in the northwest part of the county, we'll touch later this year. The slide that David had earlier really does a good job of showing the parts of Louisa and which provider is in different parts as far as the electric system. And you can't see these numbers at all, but that shows the actual number of accounts. It's a pie chart showing about how many people are connected to those different electric systems. The larger piece of the pie is Rappahannock, and then the next darker blue is Dominion. Cvc is the smallest piece. So we are committed to making sure that there's universal access to fiber service throughout the county. So that means touching in all of those areas and being across parts of all of those lines. Cvc's project will be completed by next year, mid-year, for not just Louisa County, but for all of the parts of 14 counties that the Cvc system touches. This year we have started with Rappahannock with some make-ready work. Rappahannock started down in the Shannon Hill and then a little bit east of that area. Dominion also is working, but Dominion's working and they can speak for themselves, but they are working on the engineering piece of the project, laying out where the lines are going to go, beginning the work that is required in the office before you can start work in the field. So we're all at work on the project. Dominion has some regulatory work that they also have to do to get approval from the State Corporation Commission before they can actually do construction. That regulatory process will run the first part of next year, but they have to do some preliminary engineering to get into that and some other field work that they'll be working on throughout that period. Rappahannock doesn't have the same regulatory items, so they've been able to start work and we'll continue that project from substation to substation. the way we start in the electric business and the way that our fiber project has started is to start at substations and build out from there with the lines. And we'll normally start with one circuit and then another circuit and then another circuit. We choose those based on a number of factors. So we announce as we know where we're going to be next, that will be the place we build. We don't necessarily announce the next 4 years of construction because there are factors that can change in those 4 years. And the one thing I've found is if I tell a friend that I think we're going to be there in 2 years and some other things happen and that slides to 3 years, it's hard to keep them as a friend. If I don't ever tell them and I get there in 3 years, they're excited for Firefly. So there are factors that may come in, which is why we don't lay out the entire construction schedule to start with. You will not be able to see this at all, but this tells you a little bit about what Firefly offers. We are only an ISP company. We don't do television. We also do phone, and we do business phone, for those of you who are in business. And there are a couple of folks that are here today with Firefly, Dennis Reese, our general manager, and Don Hullings, who is our contact for all commercial sales and his business folks. He knows more about business internet than I will ever be able to learn. So if you have questions, Don has information about specific things that we offer. One reason I put this slide up is to make a point about why we're going around and seeking grants. We believe not only do you have to make internet available, you have to make it affordable. Our products start at $49.99 for 100 megabit service. We only sell 2 speeds of internet. The other is gigabit service for $79.99 on the residential side. Business services are a little more expensive, and we have a 250 megabit service package also. We can also do faster speeds and different types of services for businesses that need even more capacity. And we have a great phone offering. We have a number of folks who have taken up the phone service, but I won't spend too much time on that pitch today. And that's what we do, and that's all we do. And we try to keep it really simple. We don't have contracts. We don't have charges for the router. We don't have maximum data packets. We don't do slowdowns. If you do anything that goes over some data cap. So we're just a simple company, just providing good internet service and doing it with great electric utility partners. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. I'm sure we'll have a lot. Thank you again for inviting us out.
All right, so we have some questions submitted from our distinguished audience members. One is, this person says their driveway is over a half-mile long, and the power line is underground. Lucky them. And they say they'd like to know approximately how much it's going to cost to get fiber optic up that half-mile driveway to their house or office.
I'll be glad to take that one. And do I need to cut anything on here? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. As part of the Universal Service Project that we're working on with Louisa, and that we're working on in a number of other counties, we have committed to running 2,500 feet, up to 2,500 feet to any home. If you have an extension beyond that, if you're a low or moderate income home, we're going to still extend to you without charge. If you have the ability to pay, we're going to ask you to make a contribution once we get over 2,500 feet, and it's going to be based on the actual cost. We're just going to pass through the cost for putting the plow in the ground and burying it to you. And that runs about $1 to $1.25 a foot, is what it's running today. So depending on how long your extension is, you can figure out what that cost might be.
Is that the same for businesses, sir?
For businesses, you're asking me to commit up here in front of everybody. Yes, we'll do that for businesses.
Thank you. Okay. Will we be able to get service from the Dominion switchboard inside our Louisa station or the Gordonsville substation?
That came from can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. Yeah, that came from me. I manage the power station there in Gordonsville for the electric co-op. We have a switch yard inside our facility, and then there's a Gordonsville substation, what, a quarter-mile away.
Yeah, so I think two keys in that response is Dominion, as I think Peter noted, Dominion and Rappahannock will not be an ISP.
Right.
And all access points will have to be outside of our substation. So really, I think we probably can talk offline and figure out if there's a way to create a partnership to get you the service needed. So more than happy to chat afterwards.
All right, another question. We heard your response about timelines and trucks and months of work there. We understand it's a very, very meticulous process. How can folks get an update on when their specific address might be coming into play?
You want to talk about Rappahannock
Sure.
site first, and then I'll chime in.
So one of the things, like I mentioned earlier, what we're doing is, just to begin with our 5 utility network, anytime we're in an area, we are communicating with the members, so you're aware of what's going on. And what we've done is, in partnership with Firefly, we will make sure that, as we get into an area and we're building, we will be laying out some communications to all the members to know that this is coming. Now, Gary said there's a little bit of, mishaps here and there and things that are unexpected, so we can't necessarily lay out an exact, on the 25th of August, you'll have it, necessarily that clear. But what we'll try to do is at least give a good timeline on what we expect.
And from the Firefly perspective, our website has maps and a schedule that we've kept up on the Central Virginia side. We'll be doing the same thing in Louisa County. As we make announcements, you'll be able to see that here are the next areas we're going to be building in, and we'll announce several ahead as we begin working those areas. So the Firefly website, and I think Rappahannock has some links. The websites are good places to get the most up-to-date information.
All right, and can you tell us about the different speeds of broadband that are going to be offered? And if I own a business or if I'm just at home, how do I decide which is best for myself? And can you switch that potentially down the road?
Yes, ma'am. So again, we just sell two speeds, 100 megabit per second service and gigabit service. 100 megabit per second service is going to be a faster service than most of you have had, particularly on a symmetrical basis. It will be faster unless you have another fiber service. So whatever the fastest internet you've had at your house is not close to what you would get off fiber. Typically, a high definition movie that is in 4K will run 8 to 10 megabit per second, maybe in the stream. So if you have that on in a couple of rooms, watching different things, you're up to maybe 15 to 20 megabit per second. If you are on a fairly good speed today with a different technology, you can still get to a point of buffering if you have a couple of power users. If you have someone playing a game in one room and a television in another, at 100 megabit per second, you're going to have a lot less of that, and you're going to probably, for most residences, be okay at 100 megabit per second. For businesses, 100 megabit per second is going to move files pretty quickly, depending on the size of files and the type of business you're in. But gigabit service, which is the next level up, solves any issues that come up at 100 megabit. And you can switch back and forth with our system. We don't have contracts. If you decide you need faster service, we can upgrade your speed remote. We don't have to come to your home to do that. We don't really want you to turn it up and down like, okay, can you turn it up for the next 2 hours and turn it down? We want it to stay on for a month or so if you change, but we can make sure that you have the speeds necessary, whether you are simply doing email and moving spreadsheets around and sending a few PDF files, or if you are a photographer and are moving gigabits of graphics every day. We have some of those who've connected to our system, and they're taking the higher service. So we'll be glad to work with you and make sure that whatever speed is necessary for you to be able to work efficiently with you that you can.
All right.
Yeah, I just want to mention one more thing outside of the speed, which is a great end result from this product. It's also the reliability that comes from fiber to the home solutions. I spoke to a couple individuals here in the audience that they were piecemealing products together, and it's not sustainable. So when these services are delivered, I think each of you will find yourself in a much better place.
All right. We have a question here about IWISP and why they were not invited or are not present today.
Yes, I'll be glad to take that up. The chamber, I think, invited us because we're working on the Universal Service Project. It's the project that we've talked to the county about, but there are a number of providers who have started work in the county. And that includes everything from cable systems to IWISP, which has some fiber as well as wireless services. There's some other wireless providers. First of all, I applaud every company who has worked and tried to solve the problem of rural broadband, which has been a tough nut to crack for years. And we appreciate that they are there. We are going to work in and with in some cases. In some cases, we'll end up being competition to those. But we didn't make the choice on who was on the panel today, and certainly we applaud every business who has worked to help resolve the issues with the lack of rural broadband.
All right. Will this project have the capability to service everyone in the county with broadband?
Yes.
That is the focus.
That's our intent, is that everyone will have access to a fiber-connected internet service by 2025.
Certainly broadband is a necessity, as all of our small business owners know. Cost is a concern. Can you go over the costs potentially and how they compare and if the service is affordable?
I'm going to have to go back to my slide. So the service is affordable, and again, we've worked really hard. Managing the capital costs on the front end are what allow us to make sure we can offer cost-effective services on the back end. So if you're paying $100 a month just to build the fiber, then you can't offer a $50 a month service. That's why we're trying to attract these extra grants and things to keep our costs down. On business services, our 100 megabit service is $79.99. 250 megabit per second service is $150. Gigabit service is $250. And then phone lines, it's $30, and additional phone lines cost less. We think those are very affordable prices. We have researched prices across the U.S. in urban areas as well as rural areas, and our intent is for you not to be penalized for living in Louisa County. To have as good a service at as competitive a price as if you were in Richmond or in Washington, D.C., or anywhere else in the country. And so that's our intent. That's what our focus is as part of trying to attract these grants, and that's our goal.
All right, and y'all provide the equipment, the routers?
We provide the router. There's no extra charge for that. Our router is a high-quality router. By having our router in place, we're able to do more remote troubleshooting and help our subscribers without having to roll a truck out to the site. In a lot of cases, we can resolve issues over the phone by the use of our router and being able to help you remotely. If people decide they like their own router, they have that option, but we provide the router. Another place where we don't charge, a lot of companies do, but we believe that's part of the service involved with the package.
All right. And how do you envision that fiber technology will help Louisa economically, both in growth as well as the businesses we have here already?
Sure, I'll take that on. Fiber plays a really key role just from a business standpoint. So you can only, I think, your statistics were right on point. When you look at what is going to be needed today, if you look at trying to hire someone, the first question they ask is, can I work remotely? So if more and more people are working remotely, that means more and more business services in the area, just by fact of people moving here. In addition to that, as you can see, where we, especially on the electric side, excited about this is we see the opportunity for, more innovation and more businesses coming in, such as, even data centers and the like, which is great for many different reasons, but, it also allows us to deploy several different things. I'll give a good example. Electrification of transportation is a big thing. Electric vehicles is just, if you like it or not, it's the future, right? And so, but if you don't have a good communication scheme, today I drive a Tesla. I get to a Tesla supercharger, I plug it in, it knows my car, it charges my car, everything because it's connected. That's just yet another opportunity that brings in businesses local here and can allow for a lot of opportunities. So I think overall, and part of what we're doing is, especially as electric utilities, you own us as a property. We're here to serve you, we're here to grow the community together, and that's the way we look at it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think
I don't know if you guys can hear me, but just businesses wanting to expand, it's no different than having reliable electricity. The need for high-speed internet is critical in making those decisions. Whether you're going to start a business out of your home or go build infrastructure and a foundation at a site, you need that service. So I would agree with what both of those individuals just said.
All right. I have a couple more questions from our audience members. If you do have a question, please just write it down and hand it to Casey. You can grab an index card and just signal them, and we will certainly get your question read. The question here is, who will run the cables on the 500 kV lines? Will it be buried underground or above ground? And is there a schedule for the 537 line?
573, sorry.
So I can take that to start. So this program is all distribution level. So the 500 kV line, at least for Dominion, we have fiber there, but it's not part of the broadband program. So I would just, when you drive down the street, think of your traditional wooden poles and infrastructure that you see. That's where this infrastructure will go. The fiber optic cable will be. For Dominion, and I believe Rappahannock will install it just in the neutral space, or supply space is what we call that, about 6 inches below the neutral wire. We'll run it from substation. Substation will identify points that we need to take it in a lateral mode based on where the customers need to be served. But it's not, this is not on a transmission grid.
All right, great. Can you talk about some of the funding, how this effort is being funded? I know we already have some federal funding involved in this program, and our partners over at Virginia Mercury came out with an article this morning talking about the $700 million in federal pandemic aid that Virginia is now going to spend. Can we get in on any of that, so to maybe lower costs?
Great question. And I talked a little bit about Firefly working to seek additional grants and funds to offset those capital costs. We have found that it's like patching a quilt together in terms of finding the pots of funding. There's not a single solution. Firefly has participated in the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund auction of the FCC last year and received some funding that's a commitment that brings funds in over the next 10 years. And there's about $5 million in the Rappahannock area, particularly, that came out of that fund that we'll be receiving. The county has been very generous in stepping forward and making a commitment. Their funding may come from a couple of sources, and I'll let the county give any more specifics, but having the American Rescue Plan funds come to the counties and to the state gives a source for that funding. The state's commitment to have $700 million placed into the Virginia Telecommunications Initiative Grant Fund. If I get into the weeds too much here with the names and mnemonics, just wave me down. grant fund is operated on an annual basis, and we do intend to pursue funding under that for Louisa and several other counties, and that will play a significant role in how quickly we can move. And as Christian said, these extra funds are an accelerant. They allow us to move quicker and make commitments sooner and get ahead of some of those cost curves that we know are only going to get worse as more and more people are building. In addition to that, we're keeping an eye on the federal infrastructure bill that is passed and how that may impact us going forward. And we'll piece it together so that we will try to minimize the impact on localities, but maximize the amount of funding we can bring in to speed us up and make sure we offer competitive rates.
Great. Why is fiber critical for the grid?
Sure. So as you can imagine, we need communication between all the way from the meter, right? Today, for example, the way we do some communications from, say, for example, the home to back to our dispatch, for example, could be in something we call a power line carrier. You can only put so much data on it. And the demands for data today are becoming more and more critical. Consumers want to know how much am I using, at what time, you know. We're talking in the industry, when you hear 15-minute data intervals, you know, there'll come a time where it'll be, 5 minutes, it'll be 1 minute because someone wants to be very dynamic. So as we plan what our future looks like, as we see more and more smart technologies, you look at a home today, which you can maybe call a smart home, thermostats, locks, cameras, everything is all dependent on data. And that is also dependent on electric grid. So for us, we see it as a critical piece to help us really operate the grid, be ahead of the curve as we look at deploying many different programs for the members. And so it's a critical piece to help us in just running our operations.
Yeah, I would agree. Just the evolution of the grid, if you think about devices that are being installed, there's an ability to talk and communicate with those devices, and that's why Dominion Energy, Rappahannock, and others want fiber. Today we have examples where we're communicating via cell phone and satellite, and those, just like the service you may have at your home or business, are not as reliable. So our focus is on grid resiliency and reliability, and fiber is the key to that.
I'll just give a good example. We currently have a pilot rate with the commission on electric vehicles and a special rate for anyone charging at a certain time. Most of the companies we wanted to use require a certain data interval to be able to use it. And we in some parts, we can't say all our members can do that. And so we immediately were limited on what we could do. And so that's just a real life example of why fiber becomes so important to be able to help as we see technologies coming up in the future.
Great. We have another question. We have time for a couple more questions. What are ways that businesses and residents can show support for this project, help to bolster it, potentially move it along? We have a lot of questions about when is my house going to get hooked up? That's about 3 questions I didn't read. Because I know y'all don't have a crystal ball. But
I'm going to pass those along to Peter. But as far as the way to support it, we will be putting in local letters of support into our grant application this year. Those are important. So I would catch up with Don or Dennis at the end of the meeting. Email them to us at Firefly off our website. Letters of support are helpful in letting the grant graders understand the need for broadband in your community. And I will tell you that the other applicants out there trying to seek the same grants are putting in those letters. So those are important to keep the playing field level. We think we're going to score well and receive funding for that. But that's one thing you can do. The second thing is thank your supervisors. Because the supervisors and the board in Louisa County has made a strong and bold step to go out on the limb they have gone on. And they're the ones who started this. So thank them. Tell them you appreciate it and encourage them to hang in. And they're dealing with the same questions that we are about how quickly, where is it, if we're funding it, how come I don't have it tomorrow? So tell them to be patient and support them as we work through this to make sure we get everybody really good broadband. And then I can only tell you, we're gonna work as fast as we can. We have no interest in delaying. The faster we get you online, the less questions we have. And the revenue comes in sooner. And we're laying out millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars when you look across the state. The quicker we can get funding or the revenue flowing off of that, the better off we are. We want to get it out to you as quickly as we can.
Yeah, and I would add to that, sorry, there may be cases where Dominion Energy or Rappahannock comes out and is pursuing additional easement rights. So you as a landowner, a homeowner, I would strongly encourage you to support that effort because that will allow us to extend broadband across parcels to get to those end users who need it. So as a community as a whole, you can help others and it may help you as well.
All right, great. Final question. Again, how can we keep track of the project in Louisa as it rolls out and what we have to do as far as making an appointment to get our home or business hooked up? How does that all work?
So Peter mentioned earlier that when we are working in your area, you will get multiple mailings. You'll get a mailing early on that says, look for trucks that look like this, that will be doing field engineering. It's the first step toward the fiber project. You'll get another letter later that says now larger trucks will be out working on the poles, and they may cause short outages if they move your transformer around to the different side of the pole or do other things like that. That's part of the fiber bill. Then you'll get a letter saying the fiber contractors are going to be there to build the fiber, and shortly after that, you'll get a letter from Firefly saying now's the time to sign up for service. So you'll have multiple contacts. Make sure that your address is up to date, or if you get things by email, that we keep a good email address. And we're going to be in contact, and you're going to have several shots at it, knowing that it's coming before it's time for you to sign up online.
We see the trucks in your area. Keep an eye out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, and thank everyone. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us, and we look forward to some fiber broadband.